Well, hello and welcome again to Lighting the Candle, A World That Works. I'm Bill Correll and I'm here with my buddyette, Lisa Sheehan. And the two of us are conspiring today to put some really positive vibes out there in the world and to relax ourselves and to let every ounce of stress and anything that's on our mind that is unfinished or is a nagging kind of a loose end to just kind of go away and dissipate for a moment. And this whole thing has everything to do with you, the listener. And our goal is to put ourselves aside for a moment and to allow ourselves to be the selves that we know and are familiar to us to be used by this conversation so that we can be unrecognizable to ourselves and be empowered and give that to you. So there's a whole lot of opportunity here to dig in deeply to this. And at the first level, sometimes all there is to do is to breathe. And in breathing, allowing, with the breath in, to take in empowerment, to take in love, to take in positive energy, to absolutely allow all the light of the candle, all of the light of the energy of the positive wave to come our way. And with the exhale, breathe out all of that stuff. The world is looking for me. And breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and feel the weight of all of those things on your mind as they just dissipate out into the universe. And the universe gives you again with the next breathe in. That breath is energy. That breath is love. That breath is support. And then back out again. And so it goes. And I recommend that people stop and do this. As a matter of fact, before you forget, put it into your calendar on your phone. Have your phone to take a mindfulness break at least every couple, 3 hours during the course of a busy day. Do it for 30 seconds to 1 minute and see if that makes a difference in your life. And Lisa, anything you want to share, any feelings that you have, anything that you'd like to give away so that it can go out and be understood, gotten by our listeners, gotten by me, and received, and then given back to you and replaced with love and energy.
Well, I've been my typical time spent on looking for inspiration on YouTube. I know it could be used for other things, but um, and yesterday I found one with Carolyn Meese, however she likes to say it, MYSS, and Robert Holden about the season of Advent, which of course we are in the middle of,
Sure.
and just interesting perspectives on how it was part of many different cultures because the coming with the summer with the winter solstice and the coming of the light. So it's our now we're in the darkness, but and because well she equated um, the light with truth and how the light can be blinding just as much as too much truth can be blinding. So that we do it one candle at a time, one light at a time, to get adjusted to the new level of light and to embrace it and embody it basically. So I kind of like that idea of this season being in the darkness, adding a little bit of light at each time because we know when the winter solstice hits, the light will be returning and with it all sorts of life. But right now we have to sort of hibernate.
That's that's fantastic. I totally love that notion that there is a process and perhaps, a ritual and perhaps an opportunity to express a tradition through actions. And the whole idea of lighting a little bit of light at a time, I mean, it's just played out in so many different traditions. I don't really care, what your upbringing is. Almost everyone has something going on like that this time of year.
Right.
The I find a lot of reassurance and a lot of energy as a person who loves long sunny days. My favorite time of the year is all summer long, when I wake up in the dark and I go to sleep. Excuse me, I wake up in the light and I go to sleep in the light.
Right.
I almost stated it the opposite, which is what's going on right now.
Right.
I wake up in the dark and I wait for my dear beloved wife to come home, and she gets home usually at around 6 o'clock, where it's been dark for an hour and a half.
Hmm.
Now, I find, and I don't know how it is for you, but do you find that it's kind of easier to remain a cheery, happy clam, when the weather is good and the sun is out, than it is when it's dark or, gray and overcast, raining, all that kind of stuff?
Well, I think, well, personally, I've noticed a lot of people having a hard time with this time change too,
Yeah.
with the darkness. And I, but a couple friends of mine and I have not felt that way at all. In fact, I usually have a harder time with the spring one. But and I don't know. There's something about the coziness, the inwardness of darkness that I kind of like. So and then never mind the holiday season and the lights and the Christmas carols and the everybody cheerier in so many ways. And this year being able to get back together with people, no Christmas parties last year, had already been to a few things this year, and it's just so different. But I don't I love the summer, but I love all the seasons because it without one you don't know what you're missing with the other. I lived in California for a little while and we used to pray for rain, but that nobody could drive in it, so you didn't want that either.
Yes. Yeah,
But
we kind of had that phenomenon in Florida as well, Lisa, especially with the Brits who would come over and they really didn't know what to do with rain, but from being in the UK as well. And drive down the highway, I-4 or wherever, and there's all these cars pulled over, in the breakdown lane or on the side of the road with their blinkers going, right? And so I don't know if you know this or not, but in Florida, it's not lawful to have your blinkers on unless it actually is related to an accident or some sort of a traffic issue. So it's just kind of interesting. And here's the other thing that I want to say now. Now that you've explained to me a new alternative way to experience darkness and experience this time of year, I'm wide open to it. I actually can see that there's a coziness, and there's this kind of a neat thing that you can do with a lamp up on your shoulder, opening a book and flipping from one page to the next. Of course, you don't get the same experience if you're looking at your iPad.
right. But I also noticed, like, when you wake up and it's dark out and then you can see the increasing light. So, there's like this little miracle happening every morning when in the middle of summer you wake up when it's light basically, so you don't see that approaching, that incoming new day.
Yeah, the dawn is wonderful, and there's actually a twilight at both ends of the sunny period. And a lot of people don't actually realize that it's not just light and then it's dark. There's this whole period of time where there's all this reflected light off of the clouds and the sky and all the rest of that, and it's got a kind of an interesting flavor to it with regard to how do things seem, and are they the same kind of shapes as they would be in the full light or the full darkness. And I completely agree with you. I'm sitting here in my chair that every single morning when I wake up, and I'm like this morning, I was out of bed at 5 a.m. on the dot and slept like a baby all last night. And I was in my chair at probably 10 minutes after 5, and then waited for the sun to rise. And then as it did come up a little bit at a time, and my wife was getting ready to go to work, uh, well, it's getting to be 6:30, quarter to 7, and then it's daytime. you know? And so that's kind of like you just it's like reading my mind and my exciting life, which really has a whole lot of time to sit in the quiet and just enjoy that solitude and learning to be able to appreciate and understand the sound of my own voice, the voice in my head, right?
I was because when I was listening to them too, I was about the darkness and stuff, and for some reason I just wrote down a little note and I said, "My dark self is my new best friend."
That's
So
great. Why don't we expand from there? That is a sentence that you could probably build an entire book on.
I know. And I made sure I wrote the word "me" next to it because you take notes so often. I just wanted to make sure that I remembered that
Yeah,
it
you
was
were.
real.
It was self-referencing my new,
Yeah,
new best friend.
yeah. Well, and then this darkness time is the perfect time to look at your dark self too. To because there's no bad thoughts really. There's just how you react to them, and you just float them by. And
That's that's interesting. That's kind of Nietzsche-esque, okay? Where there
Mhm.
is no good and there is no bad, it either works or it doesn't. It either gets the result or it doesn't.
Right. Well, because in the human world, we decide what every word means, what impact it has on us, our definition is so subjective as to what. And once you label something, it can never be any. It loses its charm, so to speak. To explain a tree to somebody, but the word tree, so you don't even look at you don't even think about the word tree anymore. But if you really studied a tree and looked at it for all its qualities and values and its own little idiosyncrasies and variations and that kind of thing. So
And
the
that's possible. That's kind of what we do every week in this
right,
this podcast, is to take what we already know or that we know about something and carve it up a little bit and then bring a new slant, and everybody gets a chance to kind of pitch in with their point of view and how the experience is for them. And I love that. I also love your thoughtfulness and how deep you look into what could be considered by most people, and actually is by most people, the mundane blood and guts physical world, that is what we're trying to get past.
we're the only species that doesn't realize we're part of the planet.
Yeah.
Because
And
it doesn't work that way.
so the question is how does it work?
With all things considered, I mean, we've talked about kind of well, maybe we haven't, but how you are engaging with every aspect of life is kind of the important part of the day that people just don't look into anymore.
Right.
Um, I was just, somebody was just I've never read the book, and I'm actually going to get it from the library, but it's called Ishmael, and it's about I guess the simple short story is that there's an ad in the paper said somebody that wants to a job that just helps people. So the guy shows up and he goes, "Well, are you in captivity?" And he goes, "No, I'm not." He goes, "Well, and if you think about it, do you have a job? Do you have, are you restricted in any way?" And so all of us are basically in captivity. And then the other part, um, oh, how did he put it? Oh, are you interested in destroying the planet? And they said, "No, of course not." And he goes, "But we do it every day. You do it every day in little, tiny little increments that you are not even aware of by purchasing the wrong things, by throwing things out, you know, by not paying attention to the, the nature around you, by not realizing that the trees give us oxygen and that sort of thing." But yeah, just being consumers ourselves is putting such a strain on the world. I mean, I don't know if you know ocean. God, they take plastic out of the ocean. They sell bracelets that are made out of the plastic from the ocean. Ocean something. Oh my goodness.
There
Anyway,
are more than one, to be honest
yeah,
with
but
you.
it's definitely. Oh, I can. should get the bracelets. But I didn't realize that in the 1970s to create fake coral reefs, they dumped 2 million tires into the ocean. And once the plastic pieces that held them together disintegrated or broke apart, the tires have traveled all over, ruining the reefs, and much of the, it's had a detrimental effect on a lot of the marine life. So that they're busy cleaning those up. So I just, our connection with nature has to be a lot more.
No good deed is going unpunished. Sorry about that, Mother Earth.
Right.
So I think the interesting thing here, and the thought that I'm having, Lisa, is when you stop and you get right down to it, every conversation that is, again, we're back to the Nietzsche-esque thinking about it, good or bad. When we think that way, we're only going to have two forks in the road. We have to either go this way, or naturally the consequence of doing that is the opposite thing that we think of. And you have to wonder, is there actually an array? Is there actually a whole bunch of different possibilities, including that many of the things that you've never heard about, that the initiatives that they took back in the 70s and the 80s that actually worked out, those people are now dead and gone. And the knowledge that they exist, or where they were put, or how they were put together, if they weren't continued, and it wasn't continued, I mean, most of this stuff's been funded by government grants and stuff, right? Almost all of it. There's been some great fundraising opportunities, and I have some very dear friends that have been involved in cleanup over in Singapore, and also in Malaysia, because as it turns out, the United States does not have a monopoly on making bad decisions in terms of what to do with things that they no longer need. You know.
Right.
And the truth is, if we look where we were 100 years ago, I'll make up a number and then you swear to it, okay? What if the entire population at that point was somewhere around 1.3 billion people? The entire population 100 years ago. So that's like a what if, where I'm not telling you it was or it wasn't. Go ahead and do your own research and find out what you believe. The truth is, they didn't have anybody that could count all the people in the world back in those days. So anything that you see about what the populations are is somebody's best guess. So my best guess in this conversation is there are 1.3 billion people. And now, again, does anybody actually know how many people there are in the world? We have clocks that are generating these new numbers as fast as they're not accurate. They're an approximation. There's
Right.
some scientists that sat down and said, based on the information that we've been given by these governments, what we think we know about them, and what we think about that we know about the people that never report anything, we now think we're probably somewhere on the order of, I don't know, 7.5 billion, just for argument's sake. And so let's just take the bad habits of 1.3 billion, where there was no plastic. And very few people had had more, shall we say, affluence, not even close to today. And so they did not have access to create the kind of cast off leftovers, didn't work. And I'll just, to kind of grab a random statistic out of the air, I was watching a program earlier this morning that said that there is roughly 40% waste as far as food consumption in the United States. It's either cut off, not used, and thrown away because it's not regarded as having nutritional value, taste, color, appearance, whatever. And then what goes bad in people's refrigerators, that they go and they shop for whatever the standard put up is, And that rarely seems to time out where all of the ingredients get used up completely and they've been 100% consumed. So now you take the bad habits of just that part without the plastics, without the TVs, the electronics, the nitrates, the all that stuff. And 1.3 billion people, maybe Mother Earth had a fighting chance.
Yeah.
And now we have somewhere on the order of 5 to 6 times that. And there are some people that think that we probably already are over 8 billion people. But I mean, we don't have any way of knowing for sure. However, if we looked at, again, the two forks in the road that the common conversations out there in the world give us, are there any of those people that are without sin with regard to putting a strain on our environment?
Well, probably the few civilizations that we haven't colonized or
There are some people that are
infiltrated.
doing it less than others, right? But
Right.
isn't it the nature of man to burn things? If let's just take the Aborigines in some far distant part of, some continent somewhere, they have to go about their lives. They have to live their lives. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not putting some kind of something, into the environment. So now it's a matter of degrees, and there's an argument that one could make possibly that we're all evil. And since we are all evil, where's the justification for making, I mean, what if evil is like equal or pregnant, or you either is or you isn't? So the model of making people evil gives us kind of a bad world to wake up into, doesn't it?
Right, and that's what I refuse to believe, that the whole world is evil. I mean,
Exactly.
there's too many, and there's too few outlets sharing with us the good that's being done in the world, as opposed to all the ones that are telling us all the bad that's going on in the world. But if you hook up just once with, YouTube tracks what you like and stuff like that, and I've been looking into like growing my own food and stuff like, and so every day there's, you know a whole slew of videos of small farms and small gardens and all sorts of instructions on how to do so. But and there's so many people living that way now with their own gardens, providing 90% of their home food now, and trying not to rely on store bought things and try to be as local as possible, which is a saving grace for so many people on so many levels within your community.
It's almost, I hear what you're saying there, and the attribution. These are really cool decisions, and I'll take it all the way back to the beginning of the conversation, where you could regard the early sunset as not a great thing, and you have choice, right? And your
Hmm.
choice is to find empowerment in what a lot of people will complain about until it gets to be light until 8 o'clock at night again.
Right.
That said, there's all this opportunity for point of view. There's all this opportunity for, again, the whole mindfulness conversation. And what we mean by mindfulness is where you go through and are using all three parts of your being. You're using your mental acuity, you're using your spiritual nature, and you're using your gut in terms of experiencing on those three different things as you go through life, as opposed to being asleep. And it's easier to be asleep, guys. Okay, truth be told, being hooked up to a morphine drip solves a lot of problems for people. They don't have to worry about a thing, right?
Right. No life.
Yeah, and they don't have a sense of the future in those circumstances either. So that's an overstatement, which, yes, I am guilty of that from time to time. But the point is that it drives home for you the opportunity. and the need to actually feel what's going on around you and to genuinely let that in and to experience that feeling and to use it to inform you going forward in terms of the next choices that you will make. And I always love this conversation, Lisa, because do you realize that there is only one place in the entire universe where anything can happen?
In your mind.
Well, possibly, but it's always now, it's
Oh,
temporal.
yeah. Yeah. All
There
things.
is no future, there is no past. Those are conversations.
Right, right.
And those are constructs that human beings have created so that they don't have to be afraid every minute of their life. Like there's a continuity between what came before and what comes after, except for it's just a string of nows. You can
Always.
make, yeah, you can make plans and you can talk about what you've learned and you can talk about history. But all of that is going on while you're doing it in the present, right now, and then now, and then now. And so the really interesting part of it is that there are some folks I can imagine that are listening to this conversation, hearing about how we do damage to the planet. And I don't know many people that can get their mind and their arms around that concept. However, what you've presenced, Lisa, is the opportunity if you want to grow your own stuff. It's like right now, I am shopping for a live basil plant. And I think that's a good name for a basil plant, actually. You've got corny, and then I'll have basil or basil, if you're from the
Yeah.
UK.
Yeah.
So I think, without really kind of drawing this out to too low level of conversation, if I were to say to you, um, what level of identity comes along with the need to think about more than just yourself?
I had participated in a crowdfunding for this new appliance. It's actually an appliance, but it's for composting, and it's called Lomi, and it's a decent sized little thing, but it composts all your food waste and plastic and turns it into, breaks it down, breaks it down, breaks it till you could use it in your gardens or in your plants and things like that. So I'm just like tiny little things, like not tiny, it's a big thing, but I think it was one of the most successful crowd funding projects of 2021.
So how much do the units cost each?
Well, it varies by when you got in. You know what I mean? So I think the lowest was probably 300, and I'm sure they're up like 500 now. But compared to what you waste, I just I'd like to lessen my footprint a little, and I'm trying to learn. I was saying too that I've been trying to make my diet more plant based, so there's a lot of weird waste kind of thing going on, and because I haven't perfected my shopping yet, I've been a little more concerned with how to purchase things that in a better way, like you were saying, so
Sure.
that I use them up entirely.
And that is awesome. And I'll tell you, the second half of that report that I was telling you about this morning, that 40% of food and consumables, we're talking about nutritional stuff that goes into your body, is wasted.
Mhm.
And it turns out that 20 some percent of all of the methane, which is a short term polluter, by the way. Methane
Yeah.
does not have long term effects on the world. So if anybody's telling you that cows are bad because of human beings actually produce more methane gas than cows do. All right. So I mean, all of this stuff has to be in context. And the bottom line is that the food that does not get composted, it's probably going to create methane too while you're composting it. However, what we do know is that the methane that comes from landfills has to do with decaying organic matter.
Right.
And so that's they put these pipes in and they have valves and all this kind of stuff where they burp it every once in a while. It's a fascinating conversation to have with somebody that works at a landfill, especially one that is now completely done. And the neat things that they can do with those. So, any other thoughts on that conversation in terms of awareness? The mindfulness part of it is to ask questions. What else can I do if this is a thing that bothers me?
Well, I think it's like people say, what breaks your heart, and then try to try to use that to help change what
Yeah,
what ultimately. Because if you don't have a passion for it, it's not you're not going to do much good, or you're not going to last that long. But I was also talking about mindfulness on, like mindful eating is not just about being aware that you're eating, but to be aware of how what you ate, what you're eating got to you.
yes. I actually did a very in-depth mindful report. I'm a member of Noom. I've been using it. In my opinion, it's a great community for people who want to support each other and change their behaviors so that they're healthier and live longer lives. It has to do with nutrition, it has to do with sleep, stress, and exercise. Okay. So those are the four pillars. And it's very excellent. And so I kind of did a narrative very quickly where I was talking about how I prepare a meal. When I make a salad, that can take me as much as 25 minutes to do all the knife work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciate all of that. I appreciate where the vegetables came from, and I feel blessed that I happen to be, in a space where I can take all of these ingredients and put them together, and I can appreciate what they look like beforehand, and while I'm cutting them up, and then I also appreciate my ability to decide what they're going to look like on the plate, and I have this image in my head of how that's going to look. And I do the same thing if I'm cooking a piece of steak. I did some beef ribs yesterday, start to finish, was 7 hours in preparation.
Mm-hmm.
They were in the oven for 5 hours, and I posted pictures on Facebook last night of. Did you happen to see those, by the way?
I did not see that one.
Yeah, it was 5.5 pounds uncooked for four beef ribs in a big slab, and man, I'll tell you what, they were absolutely amazing beforehand, during all of the steps in the preparation. The mindfulness is both appreciation, anticipation, a test of skill. I really want this to be a product of both love and appreciation, and then at the end I spend time appreciating the preparer,
Right.
the
Right.
man the man that I was for that half hour, 40 minutes, making a single person's dinner,
There you go.
you know? So that when it comes right down to it, is this what everybody should do? I don't think so. It's actually a place where I'm finding a little bit of self-expression and play in my life at the moment.
And whatever you could, yeah, it doesn't have to be food. It could be, find that thing that you can get that same sort of experience from
And
creating something. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, right down to hopping in your Jeep, turning on the key, and having it do nothing. Urgh. Your automatic response to you is, because we do have the right turn, which is good, and the left turn, which is bad. There's another avenue right straight up the middle, which is, what's up with that? That curiosity, like, how is this happening? What's going on with it? What information can I get and take away from here?
Right. And there's usually something right in front of you that is going to inform you.
Well, sure. And then the other thing that I just want to mention to you, Lisa, is that I have no idea how many different podcasts, meetings, groups, books. It seems to me that while you're awake, you're doing something to get information.
Constantly.
Yeah, you're kind of like, what is it? The the little shop of horrors or whatever it is. You're the mean
Self
green
awareness.
the mean green mother from outer space. Feed me, Seymour, feed me. You know,
That's probably
more
how you perceive me.
more information, more details. And oh, by the way, if you want to get a tremendous report back in terms of the detail and how your experience was, um, I look to you for that. I really appreciate and I want to acknowledge that I get that out of you at such an amazing level.
Thank you.
Your thumbprint is clearly on my forehead,
Well,
and every week I'm back to get more of that.
there's so much. I mean, well, there's no end. You don't know what you don't know, kind of thing. So there's so much that's fascinating. Even if, like we were talking about before, just being curious and discovering something new about something you thought you did know.
Yeah, and that's the old poem that basically says, we'll travel and we'll do the experiments and the great expedition, and we'll return to the place that we started from and know it for the first time, however
Right.
that is, right? And so the metaphor for learning has to do with kind of like an onion gets used a lot, where you keep peeling layers back and layers back. And the first thing is you see the onion and you think you know it. And then you peel back the outer skin to find out that there's this ripe, full, succulent layer of onion, and it's a particular color. And then the next layer. And then in some cases, you peel it back, and there's another membrane that is wafer thin. And, it exists for an instant, and then it's gone because it gets either washed down the sink or becomes part of, whatever it is that you're preparing next. Yeah, a little bit of smoke in the on the water, right? Whatever becomes of that, it's such an amazing, or another metaphor would be kind of a meteorite or a shooting star or something of that nature.
Or seeing yourself for the first, like revealing those layers to go back to the self that you and you recognize her or him for the first time
Well,
again.
what do you think, you at home? Shall we ask Lisa what she means by that? Lisa, what do you mean by that?
Well, like you said, discovering the by doing all sorts of like living life and then coming back to a place that you that feels like home. Basically, is what it comes down to for me. It's like I'm trying to peel off those onion layers and get to the me that before I was you know raised and influenced by other human beings in my life. Because they say how children can be and see and feel different energies around them, and they're not biased yet. They're not influenced by what their belief is not from you yet.
Yes, their belief is that all things are possible. Their belief is like, I learned so much from my 3-year-old when she was 3. When there was I don't know, Honey Nut Cheerios, some kind of a sweepstakes or something for tickets to Disney or whatever it was, right? And she said, Dad, you just cut the box top off, you put your name and address on it, and you mail it in, and they give you. And I got Lisa, she looked every single day when we told her, and she might have been 4, but she looked every single day when the mailman came, because we told her that's how we were going to know whether or not she had.
Yeah,
And she said, no, no, you win. You just send it in and they give you stuff. And that was
different world. Yeah,
remarkable.
yeah.
Yeah. So from your personal experience, and again, I can't, I have to have the footnote that if there's ever anybody that I've known who is constantly holding up where you are and where you've been against what's possible for you in the future, you're the poster child.
Thank you. But I think, I mean, the reason obviously that we connect, that you understand, is because you're there too.
Yeah.
You know, you're constantly in search of, but your bigger, I think, mission is to connect people that are in the same boat, so to speak, or actually opposing boats,
Could
ships
be
that pass in the
any,
night.
yeah, either in a boat or not in a boat. Those
Yeah,
are
yeah. However it happens, yeah, just to see how those two or group, wherever two or more are gathered, how those people would get along, or what kind of interesting topics would come out of that.
I will accept that 100%. It's called, let's get together and let's see what we got.
Which is cool too. I mean, and I think for some reason, like the older I get, I so much more appreciate smaller groups of conversations instead of being in big rooms and not necessarily participating, but just listening. Because the conversation part is so key to me. So, because I think it's another way of learning too, of taking it in, of letting it become part of you, is by speaking it out loud and having other people hear it and having them echo it back to you, or tell them what they don't see in what you just said.
And vice versa, 100%.
Right.
So, the pointing to language as this powerful tool, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy,
Mm-hmm.
it is the way to climb up the pyramid. Language is your opportunity to go from, just fight or flight at the very, very base. And so you can at least survive and get your basic human needs taken care of. And then, as you go along, and then there's this whole part of Maslow's hierarchy, which is called self actualization. Now, I don't know two human beings that could give me the same definition of what that actually means. And most everyone that I talk to who is talking about um, that top level, where you no longer have want, that your energy is no longer spent being concerned about the future or the past, that at this moment, you're here to explore who you are in this moment as a human being. And I don't know if that communicates with people. I wonder, if you hear that definition from wherever you are in this theoretical hierarchy of accomplishment in terms of mastering your environment, if you will. Because I really think that that's what it is. First, the language portion of it uh, is caveman like, right? At the beginning, you don't need a whole lot of language to get shelter, food, sex, those things that you got to have in order to be at that level. Now, to move into the next level, seems to me there are some questions implied that you would really have to have a little dissatisfaction with being a caveman for a minute. And don't hear me like there's a value here. Like, I think the world needs cavemen, okay? I think we all got to get along. And the whole idea of progress, again, we got that dichotomy. It's either good or bad. Well, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's like a hand with five different possibilities, or two hands with 10, or like the hairs on your head with infinite possibilities. But
Mm-hmm.
for these types of models, you have to hold other things equal so that you can say something about the progress of human beings and what is out there in the future if you choose to put it there. And putting it there is not everybody's choice, is it?
No, well, and I think we've talked about it too before. Not everybody realizes they have a choice either. The set your. I think the setup for. I don't think people set themselves up for failure. I think they set themselves up for mediocrity.
Yes. One of my favorite commercial lines was, "I'm going to fight my way up to middle management." You know,
Right.
and
Right.
there's nothing wrong with being middle manager when you're, when you're loading and unloading a truck. That seems like nirvana, and what it all comes down to again is kind of the frame of reference. Who are you now? Where do you place yourself in the universe? And I'd like if you could say again what you just said before I said what I said. You're having the choice.
Right. I don't think a lot of people have that knowledge. I mean, I was guilty of being in mediocrity for the longest time. It took me, probably looking at motivational that led to spiritual that led to all sorts of things to realize that wait a minute, I think I might have a choice in what my life looks like.
What if you do? I mean, that's so cool, right? What if
Right.
you have a choice?
And you do.
What if I don't have to sit here continually jabbing myself in the eye with a sharp object, And it's so freeing. It's so freeing to find out that 90% of, maybe in many cases, 100% of what's not working in your life, you might have something to do with it.
Yeah, everything in life is a choice. You just I don't think people realize that. I know people don't realize that. I know I didn't. So it's an easy enough trap to fall into, but it's so cool to open that trap door and look out
Yeah,
and see the possibilities.
that's funny. I'm getting this mind picture, Lisa,
I
of
know.
down in a foxhole, opening the trap door so you can peek out, and there's somebody up there playing whack-a-mole.
That would be your dark self, your new
Yeah,
best
your
friend.
dark. I love it. So let's take a minute and distinguish dark self for those who have been listening to us patiently for however long this has been going on. What is dark self for you?
For me, it's that what uh, humans, once you learn how to think, basically for yourself, there's so many negative thoughts, and it's a known fact that majority of thoughts are not only negative but repetitive. So, and to most people are their own worst enemy as far as, and I think it was Twain that said, I had so many things so many thoughts of what would happen, and most of them never did, or something like that. You know what I mean?
I've experienced many, 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 blah blah blah, some of which actually happened.
Right, right. Some of which actually happened, yeah. Most of which did not.
Right.
The other way to look at it. But in that there's nothing what we've labeled as negative too. There's nothing wrong with them either. They're helpful in distinguishing what your next choice should be in any given moment, and to weigh those possibilities, and not that they're good or bad, but just to see what's the one that will, for me, is like bring me the most joy, kind of thing. What will lead me to the next good thing, or joy, it should be the better way, not good, because there's no good or bad. But those dark selves, that because so many of us have been taught to push them down and not even acknowledge them,
Yeah.
and they fester and they come out in different ways, and most often it can get stuck and actually create dis-ease in your body. And so to to befriend your dark self and to see what that aggravation in your head, or that stress like I was experiencing earlier, little mistress, what do you need right now? And it could be, go downstairs and make a cup of coffee. I mean, that's a choice, it's a decision. Or every life is full of those little things that could make your life so much better. But if you don't even talk to the dark self, if you just keep him down, don't look at them, and like anger is not a bad thing, and in many instances it can be beneficial to use that sort of thing to make people hear you and get what you need to be understood, known. So there's so many that's why the emotions that have negative connotation, only because we put that on it, are not bad. it cannot be
Well,
helpful.
here's the thing. In my humble opinion, not enough people have had the training to be able to recognize that that little voice in your head isn't just one voice. And there's nothing wrong with it being myriad voices because it's all coming from the same place. It is the, all present and undistinguished past, which has either come either by nature or nurture. Now, I love that conversation too, but not to digress from what we're talking about. The the readings that I do say that there's somewhere around 80,000 thoughts that people have a day. And the bad news is that most of them are not kind. You know, they're not empowering. They're more about what's going to happen bad to you if you do anything other than stay where you are and cover up. Okay. So left to those voices, if you're in your home, say for COVID for 15, 16 months, and not having a lot of contact with the outside world and not having the opportunity to have curiosity and question, your status quo, it's quite important to realize that you might choose to do things that are not necessarily great for you. Okay. What's handy, well, I mean, we can look statistically at what happened to liquor sales. The number of people that didn't used to use any cannabis products and have been over the last 18 months.
And
uh,
how they're essential,
yeah,
determined essential.
yeah, no, exactly. So, I mean, if a cannabis dispensary is considered to be essential, uh, that kind of gives you an indication that there's a part of the population that it's propping up, right? These are people that are in need of having whatever that produces for them in their lives, so that they can continue to function and not melt down. So the whole idea of having choice doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a constant inventor. Sometimes the only thing to choose is what you've got. And where stress comes from is not realizing that this is something that's going to pass whether you fret about it or not. It comes from resisting that it's here at all.
Right, because you could choose that, like people that numb themselves, and I'm sure a lot of people in 12-step programs would agree that, once you get out of it, you think it's going to be all sunshine and roses. Look, I've quit my demons, and now there's nothing but goodness in front of me. But life is hard, and that's when you're actually living it.
Oh, no, I'll tell you what, there's nothing harder than life. There is no experience that human beings can have other than living their lives. And that's because they're constantly confronted with brick walls everywhere they go that they have constructed themselves. Now, they've had some help from their friends, okay? The whole process of growing up and having um, these images and these thoughts imprinted by experience and by people talking and things they've heard and things they've read and things they've learned. You can't take two or three steps in any particular direction before some of those 80,000 thoughts are going to happen. And I love what you're saying, because when they do happen, there's a technology that allows you to replace those thoughts, not wish them away, not make them bad and wrong, but replace them. And the more you replace them with new thoughts that are of your own construction and design, the more frequently you will start to hear those thoughts. And that's the whole thing behind the law of attraction, the power of a positive mind, all of the stuff that anybody's ever told us, the power of prayer, all of that has to do with you putting out there using the power of I say. That is so powerful. When you as a human being say anything, that has the possibility of going and changing the world or doing nothing whatsoever. I'm going to repeat that because that's kind of a key thing for people to take away today. I hope you're listening at home. You might even want to write this down. The I say this world is a great place to wake up into every single morning, provides you that world and that experience and that amazing opportunity to live your life in a world that isn't governed by your 80,000 negative thoughts coming from the all pervasive and undistinguished past.
When life is hard, you just got to think of, why do I feel this part is hard right now? And how is that affecting me? That, and what can I change about it, kind of thing. So even if life is hard, you still have a choice on how you're going to react to it.
And that whole life is hard thing, when I said that, it's like the truth. Hey guys, it's not the truth. Life isn't any way in particular.
Right.
It needs you to tell it how it is.
There you go. I like that.
You know? And when you tell it how it is, are you reporting the weather or are you creating this feast? You have the choice.
Right.
You can report the weather, you can give the weather forecast, or you can create a feast that everyone is designed to and everyone is invited to and everyone will come. And those who come will be the right ones. They always are the right ones, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly.
But if you happen to be in a foxhole, with one of those little trap doors above your head, you might want to just say, I'm in a foxhole with a trap door above my head, as opposed to spending a lot of time wishing it away.
Right.
Because sometimes when you start looking at a map, where do you always have to start from in order to get a plan to go from where you are to where the destination is? A little X on the map, you are here.
Yeah. Mhm.
Now, that can either be like a mystery where you're feeling around in the dark, or it can be an I say, this is where I am right now. So, this was absolutely not even close to what I thought we'd be talking about today, and I love it.
You asked.
I did. And so,
I
let me
know.
ask you a question on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest possible and 1 being non existent, completely forgot what it felt like. How is your stress level at the moment?
Oh, it's fine. It's kind of, yeah. It went out that trap door.
So, how was it right before I asked you the question of how it is?
Right now or earlier?
Well, no, not before the recording, but when I just asked you right now, is it possible to be completely stressed out and be laughing and having a good time?
Yes.
It absolutely is, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Because I know what's waiting for me too. So,
That's funny. That's
yeah.
so the whole idea of how that behaves inside your body and how that behaves inside of your
Right.
mind, and you're choosing to have that relationship with what may happen.
Right. Which sets everything up in a more positive way. So the rest shall follow.
So are you kind of like in pre-game mode? Is that where you're operating right at the moment? You're getting the butterflies to fly in formation and looking at this like, I don't know if I can, but I guess I'm going to.
Right. Or who's knocking on my trap door?
Then you don't have a secure lock on that bad boy, do you?
No, no. Maybe that's what I should look at.
There's
I'll watch a YouTube video on how to create a lock.
the defense mechanisms for defense mechanisms.
Right. Exactly.
In the meantime, what's a really big thing that's going to happen for you that is 100% great?
Really big thing. Well, I think I mean one of the I am taking a class through my church right now on the 12 powers that are a foundation of unity principles, and it's just a whole new way of looking at them that I never would have guessed before, like we were discussing before. So I mean, it's like we've discussed. I like learning new things about things I thought I already knew. So that's a big thing right now.
Yeah, what I hear you saying, and you just, let me check in with you, is that life is all about discovering new opportunities to experience metaphors.
Exactly. And I don't, especially the way life is right now, I don't plan a lot of things like that. So, unless there's something, I don't have a lot of events planned except for maybe the holidays. And even those are kind of sketchy right now. So there's not a lot of momentous things on the horizon that I planned. So I'm just going with the ones that are happening now and seeing where they'll lead me.
So, for the benefit of those at home, and I'm always thinking about you guys at home, 100%. Okay, I can see all of you very clearly. Your bright, shining faces, your smiles, your squinty eyes when you do grin. It's fantastic. Can we get a corny report by any chance?
Corny had to be put outside because he was also host to many fruit flies.
Wascally Wabbit.
Yeah. So, I mean, as much as I enjoyed him, but they were those little guys multiply rather quickly.
It was his friends ultimately that just made him undesirable.
Exactly.
That
So
is just-
careful who you hang out with.
So let me ask you a question. Has he succumbed to the temperature outside at this
I
point?
haven't checked on him today, but I'm wondering with the snow that we got and stuff that maybe
Well, tell him I said hi. I was
I
asking
will.
about.
I
Okay.
will.
And in the meantime, this is remarkable, ladies and gentlemen. We fought through at the beginning getting this uh, podcast to go at all. With an issue with a software upgrade that kind of didn't seem to work the way that it used to, and it took us a minute or two to get on twice. And then we had a catastrophic failure of our computer. And what we're demonstrating for you is choice.
Hmm.
Every week that we don't do a broadcast, it's as a result of choice. Every week that we do, no matter what happens, that's choice. And with all of that said, Lisa, you have any parting thoughts for our folks at home or anything that you'd like to share?
Well, as they say, you're always going to have thoughts, so choose the good ones.
Absolutely. And I collect different ways of saying that. And I will save those for a future show. However, today I just want to thank you for setting aside any obstacles that you thought, real or imagined, uh, to spending some time together today, because the gift of your time is something that I consider to be very, very valuable.
Thank you. Right back at you.
My
And I just want to, yeah, I want to clarify that good. There's no such thing as good or bad. So if there's,
thank you,
if
Miss.
you have a thought, just see where it leads you.
It's an opportunity to ask a question, isn't it?
Right.
I like that, that on ramp to the many questions, which is what's up with that?
Yep.
I wonder what that's about.
Yep.
Holy
Yeah.
mackerel. Where did that come from, and what can it possibly have to do with my life?
Why do I feel this way? That one.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a whole heck of a lot more than to say thank you to everybody for tuning in yet again. I believe this is episode number 86. We are getting, in the throes of the holiday season. We're currently in Hanukkah, and before too much longer, we'll be, pressing into the Christmas season and all of the rest of those, including Festivus for the rest of us. And when it comes right down to it, we do this for ourselves and we do this for you. But you are the reason that we use to have this great feeling and share this camaraderie with each other every single week. So we wish you the very best of the rest of the day. And I will leave you with two thoughts. First of all, the one that I love, which is tomorrow is the first day of the rest of your life. And then I'm also going to tell you this: When you get into those moments, when you're pretty sure that choosing is going to be hard, always do the best that you can, just for right now, just for today. And I wish you the best day ever. And thank you for tuning in to Lighting the Candle, A World That Works. Bye bye for now.
Have a good week.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Lighting the Candle, A World That Works, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can catch us each week, as well as the rest of the network, at exvadio.com/podcasts, as well as the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts.